Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Brody. I'm the Global Head of Enterprise Business Development here at AWS. Joining us a little bit later in the session will be Ryan Seaman. Ryan is the head of our Enterprise Next Business Transformation program. I'd like to start by welcoming all of you to this session, Achieving Bold Business Outcomes. And in this session, I want to cover three things. I want to talk about why business transformation is important, number one. Number two, some of the learnings that we've gathered from partnering with thousands of enterprise on their cloud-powered enterprise transformation. And then three, based on those learnings, some of the best practice and prescriptive guidance that we've identified to guide companies on their enterprise transformation journey. So let me start first with why is business transformation so important today? I think these stats on this slide are pretty telling. I think they really make the case. And the reality is that market disruption is now the very new normal. If you look at the S&P 500 as a benchmark here, 75% of the companies on the S&P 500 today will drop out by 2027. And so market disruption is real. And if you start looking at some of the stats, if you roll back to the 1950s, the average tenure of a company on the S&P 500 was over 60 years. If you roll forward to the 1980s, it was 25 years. Rolling forward into the 2011, it was about 18 years. And it's actually projected by the end of this decade that it'll actually be about 10 years. So it's not only that market disruption is happening, the pace of that disruptioning is happening at ever faster rate. So it's critical for enterprises to actually transform their businesses if they want to thrive and survive in this new market reality. So let's look a little bit at why the lifespan is changing. Why do we see so much increasing market disruption? If you look in the past, again, if you rolled back 20 years or so, a lot of times change was avoided. Change was seen as risky and tried to avoid a lot of change. But today, there's a lot of market factors. There's a lot of market drivers that are compelling companies to change faster. First of those is shifting consumer behavior. If you look at the next generation consumers, they have much, much higher expectations from companies. They're constantly looking to get better products, better services, better customer experiences out there. And so companies really have to respond to that, to respond to this ever-increasing, customer demand for better products, services, and experiences. Two is disruptive competition. So there are many competitors that are out there that are willing to respond to those market opportunities and those changing customer needs and demands. And so companies have to respond to that competition, and if they don't move faster than that competition, it can really cause impact to the business over time. Three is shifting regulations. There's an ever-increasing amount of regulation, regulatory compliance requirements that are constantly shifting. Companies have to respond to these compliance requirements, these new federal regulations that are out there. And finally, if you look at the last decade, we've seen the highest number of natural disasters. If you look at hurricanes, tsunamis, and these cause significant disruptions to business. So companies really have to be ready with business continuity and disaster recovery plans. And also, if you look at the COVID pandemic that we've been recently experiencing, this has really caused companies to have to quickly and rapidly respond to this new environment and radically change their operating models very, very quickly. So these are some of the factors that's driving some of this disruptive change, and enterprises have to respond very quickly, again, if they want to thrive and strive in the new economy. But the reality is transformation is hard. If you look at this McKinsey study, this is a survey of enterprise CEOs. And 90% of those CEOs recognize that disruption is going to happen in their industry. They acknowledge that disruption is coming to their industry vertical. They know that they have to change. Yet, only 1 out of 6 of these CEOs think they have the right, bold strategic strategy to actually respond to this disruptive threat, to respond to sort of the new market dynamics that are out there. And if you look even beyond that, for companies that embark on these digital transformation initiatives, of those, only 70% are estimated to achieve their goals that they set out to achieve at the beginning of those projects. So it's hard. A lot of companies struggle. They don't feel they have the right strategy. I'm not sure how to get there. We see many companies that come to AWS. They're seeking partnership. They're seeking guidance on how to successfully transform. They all see cloud as a key enabler of their digital transformation strategy. They see how Amazon and our customers have innovated over time. They see the pace of innovation that Amazon has. And they really want to learn, how can they innovate? How can they adapt rapidly to succeed in this marketplace? And we're really happy to share that the companies we're working with, many of these mature companies that have been around for a while, are successfully transforming in partnership with AWS. Here are just a few examples that I want to highlight. First off is Nationwide. If you look here, they saw significant cost savings by adopting AWS cloud computing. They were able to cut their customer quote processing time down to less than 20 seconds, really significantly improving that customer experience. And they also improved their page load times unexpectedly. That's just a side benefit that they didn't go in planning for. If you look at News Corp, News Corp was able to consolidate their data centers. They started with 56 data centers. They were able to reduce that down to 6 and reallocate over $100 million back into the business for innovation, new projects to better serve their customers. Enel was able to migrate 5,500 virtual machines in 9 months, significantly reducing their storage costs, their compute costs by 20%, and they were able to improve their provisioning time by 10x. So pretty significant benefits that they were seeing there. And if you look at GE, GE was embarking on an Internet of Things strategy. There are massive volumes of data being generated by IoT devices, and a lot of this data volume is unpredictable. It's hard to predict how much demand would be required there. So by shifting to AWS and using that as the data storage for their IoT initiatives, they effectively got unlimited data storage. They didn't have to worry about predicting capacity and running out of capacity there. So these are just a few examples. And if you look at these, one of the key benefits that these customers realize is cost savings. And for many companies, cost savings is one of the primary drivers that leads companies to pursue cloud computing. But almost in all cases, companies that we work with see other value being generated from that. So speed, time to market becomes so much more critical. Agility, the ability to adapt on the fly, on-demand resources scaling up and scaling down. And significant improvements to customer experience. If you look at the Nationwide example, really reducing that processing time, that quote time, down to less than 20 seconds is a significant improvement in customer experience. So cost is a huge benefit, but organizations see many, many other benefits when they start leveraging cloud computing more fully and really helping them achieve some of their business outcomes that they need to get. So these are just a few examples, but the reality is AWS has thousands of enterprise customers. We are the leader for enterprise cloud computing, with more enterprises on AWS than any other cloud provider. And we've successfully worked with these companies to leverage cloud technology to achieve business outcomes. And we have done this across every industry vertical. And so this is industries where they're seeing a high degree of industry disruption and have to innovate at a very rapid pace, have to transform at a very rapid pace. We've also seen this in industries with very high regulatory and compliance requirements. So cloud is really driving benefits across the industry spectrum. So I want to talk about some of the challenges that we see with organizations when they're trying to embark on a digital transformation, a cloud-powered digital transformation. In working with these companies, we've seen some common challenges that you see across enterprises. First is a challenge around aligning business outcomes. In many organizations, there's lack of clarity in some cases on the business strategy. There's lack of alignment in some cases across different parts of the organization on the overarching business strategy. And as it relates to cloud computing, in many cases, there's not alignment between the business strategy and the technology strategy. So is the cloud strategy really driving and helping support the business strategy? Another challenge that organizations face is just a significant amount of technical debt. Most enterprises, on average, enterprises have 2/3 of their budget and their effort invested in on-premise resources. And really tied down, it's hard to move quickly, and a significant percentage of the budget is spent on just keeping the lights on, not really focused on innovation. So organizations want to see how they can flip that equation and invest more of their budget, more of their effort in innovation and supporting the customer. Talent is key. One of the keys to success is talent that is eager to build and talent that is empowered and enabled to actually build on behalf of the customer. And so for many organizations, this requires training the development teams, training the organization on the power of cloud, gaining new cloud skills. How do you operate in the cloud? How do you leverage the cloud effectively? And also enabling builders to build. So what are the organizational changes? What is the technology platform you have to put in place to enable developers to be able to build rapidly, quickly on behalf of their customers? The third is keeping pace with demand. We talked about the disruptive threat. There's so much demand from the customers, from disruptive competition. So how can organizations respond quickly? How can they have customer-driven innovation and do that at a very, very rapid pace? And again, some of that ties into being able to address some of the technical debt issues that are out there. And finally, it's about building new operating models. The traditional way of doing things, the traditional way of operating and developing software, developing technology projects, the way that people work together has to change. In many cases, there's organizational silos, and those silos have to be broken down and have to really establish smaller, empowered, cross-functional teams that can deliver much, much faster. So these are some of the key challenges that we've identified working with customers, and we have some ways that we can address that. And I want to kind of shift into how AWS can help here. So why partner with AWS? Why partner with AWS on business transformation, on digital transformation? And how do we help in that journey? The first thing I want to highlight is our initial leadership principle. This is our number one leadership principle, and it's customer obsession. We start with the customer and we work backwards. We try to understand what are the customer needs, what are the customer challenges, and how can we help address those? And this is something that has started from the very beginning of Amazon, and we've been focused on that to solve customer challenges. And this is what led us to create AWS. And it's what drives us to partner with enterprises to help solve some of those challenges that we laid out on the prior slide. Looking at AWS, I want to talk about one of the things that sets us apart. And it is that customer focus that I touched on, but it's also our experience. There is no compression algorithm for experience, as Andy Jassy, our CEO, likes to say. And that's one of the things that sets us apart. We've been working in the cloud computing space for over 14 years. As we talked about, we've helped millions of customers on their cloud computing needs and their cloud computing journey. And if you look at AWS, we have the broadest set of services, the broadest set of features compared to any other cloud provider. We have over 200 services out there today. And again, that keeps increasing year by year. We have 77 availability zones that are out there. Over 24 regions. We have 8,000 software titles out there from 1,600 partners. So we have the broadest community of partners and ISVs on the platform. So this rich platform, this rich community, the broadest and deepest platform are some of the things that set AWS apart and why you should work with us. But now you want to probably find out a little bit more about what's involved. You want to understand a little bit more about what is AWS's guidance and the best practices for success. So for that, let me turn it over to Ryan Seaman. Ryan, take it away.
Thanks so much, Steve. Hi, my name's Ryan Seaman, and I'm the worldwide head of AWS's largest enterprise transformation offering. I've been with AWS for almost 7 years now. And during that entire time, I've spent almost every minute working with large traditional enterprises focused on how they achieve their business digital transformation outcomes on top of AWS. Since I've been here, I've worked with many customers of different shapes and sizes and from many different industries. And I'm happy to be spending time here with you today to talk about what we've learned throughout the journey and what's really involved when you think about transforming not just your technology layers, but also your business on top of AWS. When we think about business transformation on AWS, we really think about these 5 key areas. It's modernization, innovation, insights, organizational alignment, and scalable foundation. Today's enterprises aren't just single customers to us. What we find is the majority of our enterprise customers are actually a collection of different lines of businesses. And none of those lines of businesses seem to be at the same place in their journey at any one of our enterprise customers. And so what we found is that by focusing on the business outcomes associated to modernization, innovation, and insights allows us to not just be helpful to our enterprise customers, but to be more specifically and closely focused on helping lines of businesses within the enterprise achieve their digital transformations. We find that the lines of businesses are really where most enterprises connect to their customer base. And for us, that's all about working back from the customer. And so we start with a customer who connects to the line of business, and then we drive strategies not just for the enterprise as a whole, but what's a strategy look like and how's it attentive to the need of each one of the lines of businesses? And what we find is that some businesses are often in a state where they're trying to control their cost, increase their efficiency, maybe increase their margin by reducing their operating expenses. And we often pair those with initiatives centered closer to data and insights and often modernization, where we reduce that technical cost at the bottom of the barrel. Other business units are often focused on how are they changing their customer experience? How are they driving new markets? How are they opening new channels? In those cases, we often find customers are really focused more on the innovation side of modern technology. So in those spaces, we really focus on driving innovation strategies and digital transformation strategies focus closer on the customer experience and the new features for customers. And in those spaces, that innovation strategy really has to meet the customer's needs. You take those three more focused on business outcomes and the business levels, and we support them with both a scalable foundation as well as organizational alignment. For us, scalable foundations are key because what we're trying to do is lower the barrier to entry across the entire enterprise, make it easier for product teams, application development teams, and groups across the entire enterprise to be faster into the cloud and faster to work with modern digital services that allow them to meet customer demand faster. When it comes to organizational alignment, the complexity gets a little bit more rich, especially in the enterprise space. Organizational alignment covers a myriad of things, and it's a big phrase with a lot of meat and density to it inside of the enterprise transformation. When you think about organizational alignment, it's things like the way that you work, how you form teams, no longer working in silos, but working in teams that cover multiple skill sets with a diverse background that are more attentive to the overall product you provide to your customers. On top of organizational alignment for the ways that you work, we also have to look at the skills within the organization and what types of skills you need today and what types of skills you need tomorrow. And if you think back to the fact that different lines of businesses and different product teams are focused on different outcomes, the reality is the skills you need within those teams are often variant as well. And so focusing not just on broad brush skills that you want across the entire enterprise, but how do we put the right skills into the right places to create the outcomes that you want most for your customers? And so thinking across this entire landscape, I think the big messages are one strategy probably won't serve your entire enterprise. The reality is different parts of your business need different strategies. Trying to force feed them all one strategy that meets the need of all, we've seen to be pretty ineffective. The other big focus point is don't forget about the underlay and the support of the organization. Focusing on organizational alignment, skills development, new ways of working in the modern digital era, as well as reducing the fear of cloud services or the fear of working differently in different teams is really important in helping the enterprise transition as a whole. So with that, let me talk a little bit about the results that we want to drive through enterprise digital transformations. Jeff Bezos said this best in our 2016 shareholders letter when he said, "Our customers are always beautifully, wonderfully dissatisfied, even when the customer seems to be completely happy with the service that they get." And I think that really speaks to the outcomes that you want to get from the digital transformation of your business. Really what you want to be is the company that can reinvent whenever they identify the need to to always create that new normal. Steve talked about the new normal when he was talking about how fast enterprises are coming and going from the S&P 500 today. And really what it is, it's identifying that the barrier for your customers to switch from their existing services to new services has greatly reduced. So as a customer, whether it's, financial services, healthcare services, who I'm using for my cell phone plan, et cetera, the move for me to go from provider to provider to provider is much easier. And so with all of the social media around us and the way that we connect digitally all the time, we're always being hit with new ideas and new opportunities to try things new. And we're no longer afraid of trying those things the way it used to be, 20 or 30 years ago. And so for us, what's important is that the outcome of your digital transformation for your business isn't about making one step to become a modern digital business. It's about enabling your business by building these capabilities into your business so that you can reinvent continuously as you go forward. You can identify what your customers are going to want next by listening to your customers, looking at market data, and looking at your own organizational data to quickly pivot to the future. And so if we talk about just a few of these core capabilities that we really want to embed within the organization, they're things like using business and market insights data to make decisions quickly. Today, it seems like a long research project before we identify and define what our strategy is going to be. Tomorrow, we want to be able to collect data not about last quarter or last year, but maybe about last week, last month, maybe even this morning, and make decisions based on the data that we're seeing. And to do that, you need a powerful data platform and insights capability so that driving insights isn't expensive and in a long, arduous process. Another good example that we look for is on the bottom right, where we talk about platform and app modernization. Platform and app modernization isn't just about reducing the total cost of operating your IT environments. Platform and app modernization is also about getting rid of some of the technical debt that allows you to be more agile, more nimble, scale better, more reliable in the future. Some of our customers have talked about this in the past with how they reduce the number of failures that they see at release time. We see customers that often say that they've reduced their failures at production launch by 5x what it used to be. For a lot of people, it's important to them to think about that because it means those are 5 times as many good customer experiences you're having where the customer isn't negatively impacted by a release. I also like to think about the fact that when you do better production releases, it actually increases your productivity on how fast you're releasing features and updates to your customers. And so things like platform and app modernization are critical to get over your old technical debt. And things like ephemeral test environments and test environments when you need them versus long static test environments are critical to achieving those outcomes. Another important thing to look at is how the AWS cloud serves your business and how you match your cloud skills to go with that. So attaching your strategy around your cloud skills and your cloud capability within the organization and how those skills are actually directed to achieve the business outcomes is critical. It's not about just skilling people up for the sake of skilling people up. It's about skilling people up and aligning your organization to achieve the business goals that you need from the business. So drawing that connectivity from the business outcome that's often associated to the customer all the way back through your IT strategy into the things you're doing day in and day out to improve the organization and transform the organization. And the last one I'll talk about is innovating on that customer experience. Finding new ways to innovate on the customer experience and drawing more close connectivity to your customer. Oftentimes we talk about this at AWS as working backwards. We offer a lot of things to our customers about how we do this ourselves. We know it's not going to work in all cultures, but we find that by working with customers and showing them how we do innovation and how we work with customers, we're able to take those ways of working and blend them to work best inside of the customer's environment. To give an example of where we've been pretty successful, we had a large enterprise transformation effort that we drove with Nationwide over the past year and a half. To date, we've been pretty successful in working with Nationwide to move 75 new apps onto the AWS cloud. We've reduced their spend on their existing platform by 30% for every application that we've moved to AWS. That's a pretty big feat when we look at the fact that we've now transferred over 300 applications into AWS, and they have another 200 that are on their way. We've had meaningful impact, not just in their technology and their cost of technology, but also the outcomes for their customers. We've reduced their time to create quotes across their commercial and their personal lines business down to less than 20 seconds when it used to be more than minutes. On top of that, we've also created the ability for Nationwide to scale when they really need to. When Nationwide needs to scale, it's often because there's things like the wildfires that occurred out west. These are days when their customers are not having the best day, and as a business, they want to be there for their customer. Being able to scale on demand when they need to is critically important to their customer base, and they don't want to spend time worrying about that scalability when really what they want to focus on is their customer and how they can best help their customer. And so those outcomes are very meaningful to the top and bottom line of Nationwide, and even more importantly, to the relationship with their customers. But when you look across that entire landscape, a lot of customers talk about how many applications they've moved to the cloud or the things that they've done. I think what's really interesting about this story from Nationwide, and Ryan Hughes said it best at the reInvent presentation, was they've not just moved a bunch of workloads to the cloud. They've moved a lot of their core business. The commercial lines and their personal lines quoting systems, their policy management systems, their claim suite, Nationwide.com, the front end of the Nationwide financial services websites. All of these things are critical to their business, and they found them to be more efficient, more scalable, and more effective for the future of their business by running them on top of AWS. Jim Fowler said it best, and I think really draws me to the Nationwide success most meaningfully, is you think about all of the technology work that we've done. He really highlights in this quote that what AWS and Nationwide have done together is allow them to quickly innovate and provide new services to their customers. Steve made the point earlier today that 2/3 of enterprises spend the majority of, or they spend 2/3 of their enterprise budget, time, and effort on keeping the lights on and doing maintenance activities. With Nationwide, we're shifting that 2/3 from maintenance activities to really focus on the customer experience, the customer relationship, and how Nation will continue to create the new normal of what's expected in the insurance and financial industries. So throughout this presentation, we've talked a lot about what AWS has learned, what we think is critical to transformation, and how AWS is starting to help customers. We've released programs like AWS Enterprise Next, as well as the AWS Transformation Guide to guide customers through these journeys. If these stories resonate with you, if you're looking for ways to improve and increase the scale of your transformation, or if you're looking for a prescriptive roadmap where we help bring you to the course that's going to be the fastest, then reach out to your account manager. Talk to your account manager about connecting with the AWS Enterprise team, the AWS Enterprise Transformation teams that support customers on these journeys. It's also very important not to look over. You don't need a very large strategic roadmap laid out to get started. Many of the core capabilities that we spoke about earlier are available to enterprise customers from training and certification today. I encourage you to engage in these training and certification classes as fast as you can. You'll find that learning is one of the biggest things we encourage here at AWS, and engaging with our enterprise training team is the fastest way to get started. We also find that customers that engage with the enterprise training team also start to make progress on not just their move to the cloud, but also how fast and how accurate they're able to build their strategy. So on behalf of Steve and myself, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us today. We look forward to working with you in the future and look forward to helping your enterprise digitally transform on AWS. Please do connect with your account manager and ask about and inquire about the AWS transformation offerings. Please do engage with our training and certification group. And lastly, if I could beg of you, please provide some survey feedback from the session. It helps us to improve how we interact with our customers every day. Thank you so much.